Welcome with the Huawei Mate 8 review. We got this little beautiful device at the CES 2016 in Vegas a week ago, and we have been using it ever since it's an awesome device and it lasts forever. 6 inches Full HD screen, you would think it's a huge display. Why does it last so long? It's easy, there's a really big battery inside, even though we have a really slim device. Just 4000 milliampere is the battery. That's you could say double the battery of the iPhone 6s, even a little bit more, and also 33% more than you have on the Apple iPhone 6 Plus, or even on most big smartphones with 5.5 inches, like for example the Sony Xperia Z5 Premium. They can just put also here in the picture so you guys can see that the device is almost the same size in terms of just device size, but the display is a lot smaller here on the Sony, since we have a lot of borders here going on all around, and I just don't like that a lot. So Huawei built a big phone, but it's not feeling too big, but it has at least a huge battery, so 81% to start off. We will see what it is here at the end of the 10 to 15 minute video, where I will demonstrate a lot of stuff to you. First, let's go around the device before we go into the software. So you guys can see we have a full metal body, feeling awesome. We have here a display protection foil in the back that I haven't taken off yet, to just demonstrate to you that we have 2 SIM cards right now here in the card tray, or you can choose at the second SIM card also if you want to just use it as a memory expander, which is quite nice because we only have 32 gigs inside in my version, but there's also different versions available. For example, this has 3 gigs of RAM. And there's also a device available with 4 gigs of RAM. Otherwise, volume rockers, on and off switch. On the top we have the headset jack and a microphone built in, and on the bottom we have here more microphones built in that you cannot see, and a few speakers that sound really quite alright. Then on the front there is nothing except for a great 8 megapixel front camera, selfie camera, a few sensors, and the device is already protected by a H9 glass, which is quite nice. So even though there's Gorilla Glass below, we have a display protection foil already out of the box here on the Huawei Mate 8. And also on the back the camera sticks out, but it doesn't stick out that much, so you guys can definitely see it's not disturbing at all. Obviously when you will put it down on the table, it might scratch or do anything like that, but there's enough of border around the 16 megapixel camera with the dual flash to be alright. So what we have here on the back is a fingerprint reader, which if I put on my wrong finger on it, it will vibrate. The phone will vibrate even though it's on. So the only thing I have to do is put my right finger on it, and I'm not pressing a button here on the side. Actually, just by putting my finger on it, it will unlock and I can right away start to work. And it's not a real button, it's just a place to put on your finger, which is quite nice. Now what this phone cannot do, which I'm really sad about, is what the Mate S does, is you can move your finger here around on the device and move, for example, pictures or the home screens or anything like that. So you still need 2 hands usually for most actions here with the Mate 8. So let's go a little bit through the software, which is a standard Android 6 that should be running on here, but actually we have obviously the Huawei software on here, which is called the EMUI, which Honor also uses. You can see we have Android 6.0 Marshmallow on here, 3 gigs of RAM, and the latest Kirin 950, which is amazingly fast. It's the fastest smartphone out there for gaming right now, for example, if you ask Antutu. Here again, the Full HD screen on 6 inches is for me totally enough, and especially it's good for the battery life, since therefore the battery life is a little bit longer, since the backlight doesn't have to be as strong to get through all the pixels. So what we can do also, if the screen is just on but you haven't logged in, is use your knuckles for different things. We have seen that before, like I can just do this and start the camera. Come on, here we go. And actually, let's just do it again. So here, this way I could start the camera. If I unlock it, it will be right away in the camera. If you don't have an unlock code or anything like that, if you are on any screen, this also works. You don't have to be on the lock screen. I can do an E for the gallery and do a W, I think, for the browser. Or no, that was actually the weather. And here we go, or we can do other stuff that I can definitely just show you here, for example, in the settings, if you were already there. So if you are in the smart assistant, I think it was, and in the motion control, it says somewhere on the bottom here, draw, and you can turn this draw things on and off. And you have the choice between C, E, M, or W. You cannot add any more letters, which is a little bit sad, but you can adjust, for example, for yourself. You don't want, with the M music, you want maybe your notepad or your email or your messaging. That could be also, or your Gmail, Hangouts, Facebook Messenger, or whatever app you have on here. You can program it to be starting with the M letter right away if you don't want to look for it on your screen somewhere. This is actually Zexo or Quexo technology that I think Huawei just bought or uses, and there's a lot of other things that you can obviously turn on and off here. You can see that we have a dual window gesture, and that's not that handy if you ask me, because a lot of apps don't support it, and a lot of other things are also available here in the settings that you can set up, like for example obviously your fingerprint ID reader on the back. You can a little bit modify the status bar, like for example you don't have to show the carrier name. For example, I don't have a carrier right now, so just says emergency calls, which is a little bit annoying. Or you can just hide the battery percentage here also, which could be also nice. And so on. So there's a lot of things to see in your settings. Maybe I will do a EMUI review also, just a little bit tips and tricks what you can do with your different Honor phones. But let's stick with the topic, which is actually still UI. I can do, for example, also this, and not only add a wallpaper widget or more, but transitions are also something not everybody supports. Like for example, I want to have a page effect or maybe a windmill effect. Windmill is actually quite cool, so I just do this, and then you can see here the windmill effect here between different pages is looking quite funny, and let's just leave it with that. Alright, so that's about the settings. Let's check out the camera and also how good of pictures it takes. So the front camera, you can see I have two lights in the back, and even though there are two really strong lights in the back, the camera has a really great quality. I can do also video. It gets a little bit closer then, since then the quality is only full HD in terms of video, and we have also the feature for time-lapse, and in the beauty mode, as usually with Asian companies, you can get a little bit less wrinkly and your face a little bit tighter, and everything else is also possible to set up, obviously here with the little setup sign. And you can also just go back to the camera on the back, which is really also quite great. I can just quickly shoot a picture here of my water bottle, for example, check out that picture. And there's optical image stabilization built in, which obviously we love. So you don't have to hold the phone still, and you can still zoom in and see here on my Fiji water that it says natural artesian water on the bottom. Even though if I zoom out again, that's really quite a tiny detail, and you otherwise couldn't tell. Then here on the back, there's even more or smaller details. Maybe here a code or anything on my devices, like the Huawei MediaPad M2 8.0 is also right there. And if I really want to, I could even read the MAC number. That's a bit blurry now, but still good enough if you want to just check out from really afar, really tiny details. That's really quite cool. But yeah, that's the standard camera features. Let's check out the gallery a little bit more. Let me just type my E for the gallery to show you, for example, in Vegas, more details. In daylight, this is a picture we shot in front of the Caesars Palace, looking quite awesome. Or actually, this one didn't turn out to be sharp enough. Let's just go to the next one. This is a lot better. And let's just zoom in and zoom in more, so you guys can see all the details that look quite beautiful. And one tiny thing which I love is actually here you can see there's elephants and a zebra on the bottom, and they're still quite sharp. So you could even just cut this out and just put this as a background picture, even though look how tiny that detail was. This is really awesome. Also, what we can do, obviously, shoot videos. Sadly, the Kirin 950 doesn't do 4K videos, just full HD at 60 frames without optical image stabilization. And what I did is shoot it in full HD with 30 frames with optical image stabilization. So I have a few daylight videos from Vegas going on for about 15 to 20 seconds here on my German YouTube channel, which is called Tech Video, where you can check out a little bit the quality. Also for the night camera, where you have also A little bit of a slow focus, you can see it here, which I'm a little bit sad about, since the camera is really great. You really have to tap always on the picture, and sometimes it focuses, sometimes it don't. It's really a little bit slow for video. For pictures also, the autofocus is not the fastest, which I'm always sad about, but more about that if you check out my YouTube channel. But for example, for pictures, it's still alright. You can zoom in here, for example, also, and you could almost maybe read the top thing. But for example, we can read here Outback, even though again that's not that big of a sign back there in front of the in Venetian. Low light again, you can also record in clubs and so on, but the most cool thing about Huawei phones is the low light thing, where you can just use lights like this, an LED light. You can buy these for $2-3. I will have a link on my YouTube channel or on my YouTube video here, so you guys can buy 4 of these for about $3. So you can do, like for example here, the tech video. Here I tried to do UHD tech, UHD. Now this is the wrong way around, so let me turn around the phone and say I want to edit, I want to rotate, and I want to just mirror, and here you have it, UHD, and I could rotate it obviously any way I want, or just say no, I just like it how it is. And you not only have the standard features like rotate and filter, I could do here dark pictures, for example, with this also, but you have also the possibility to do mosaic, graffiti, and even watermark it. So I could say, for example, okay, this was shot on the date, and we had the weather, and so on, which is also not a new feature, but Huawei is trying to really do with the EMUI a lot of features, or add a lot of features that other companies don't have. For example, if you go into the tools, there's not only your standard flashlight and FM radio, which still a lot of people love, and calculator, but one of my favorites is actually somewhere here. There's also a voice recorder, which I have to look for now, since I can't see it right now. Now that's again a problem with Honor that you may sometimes have, that the only way to find actually things, or to find sometimes a few things, is by typing it into the standard Google search, and then it will tell you if your app is on the phone sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't. So I don't see the voice recorder, which is one of the most awesome things that actually are on here. Anyhow, not that important. Let's do a little bit of gaming, and then let's do a little bit of more tips and tricks, and then you will see how good the battery lasts. And I think you're already convinced that this phone is awesome, since I'm convinced that the phone is awesome, and especially when it comes to camera and battery life. This is a great phone. I love it, and I know for a lot of people it might be too big. For example, if you take the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge, it's also a big phone with 5.2 inches or 5.1, I never remember. But you can see the Huawei is not a lot bigger. If I put it in front of it, it's just a little bit taller. So let me do a little bit of running here before I die, or continue with my review. And you're able to see the game started really quickly. I didn't have to wait at all with the 3 gigs of RAM, and if you get the device with 4 gigs, it will be even faster, which is obviously something everybody wants, a fast phone. Not only for gaming, but for any other tasks. I never had to wait with this phone. Sometimes a few apps are just not built great, like the Angry Birds app, that you can see that in my gaming review for this phone, where I also showed this video which I'm playing right now. Angry Birds 2 didn't want to start, which is quite strange, since that's actually kind of a standard game. So enough of the running. Let's show you a little bit more what the phone has to offer. Like for example in the settings again, here in shortcuts you have a few things that you can set up. I can also set the brightness a little bit higher. You can see just 1% less in 14 minutes, and we did even a little bit of gaming. That's quite awesome at half the brightness, and this is just too bright for my camera, so let me just adjust it back here for you. So as I showed before, there's quite a lot of things that I could do, and here for example with the battery, if you don't believe me, you can see definitely that we have right now, for example, about 25 hours left if I use it the same way as I'm using it for the last few hours, so mostly I don't use it. And I can also turn on and off here the battery percentage on the top if that annoys me, and I can turn on and off also other things if I don't want them to see, like for example I don't want to see my phone provider, and I can also adjust here my motion control, but I can also adjust here the knuckle controls I showed you before, where it's also possible to knuckle control here that you want on one page, one half of the page one app like the gallery, and on the other half you could do your file browser. Now, bad about this is that you only have the option between 8 Huawei apps right now, not standard Facebook or any other apps, which is a little bit stupid. So I cannot chat and look at my pictures at the same time, which I don't like. But you can also do this feature by just long pressing here the last apps button, and you can see you can choose between both sides, and you can switch also how big one app could be or how big the other could be. And you can also add here this little button, so you don't have to drag down the settings or the shortcuts button from the top. And that could be also easy, and dragging it here on the bottom is also a little tip that I can give you here with the Huawei Mate 8, which, as I said before, I love. Definitely check out my camera test videos that I have on my German tech video channel. Quite easy to find, and definitely subscribe me. I hope you liked my little video. Let's do a little bit of sound check also, so you can hear that. That's also really great. Here on the bottom, let me turn up the volume a little bit more. Even DTS sound. Enough of that, maybe some other song. If I turn it around, you will see that there's quite an interesting flip view also here of other songs. Let me just play this one. So again, quite an awesome phone. Definitely check it out for $550 or $600. It's a little bit expensive right now, but Huawei is definitely catching up with other companies like Samsung and Apple. The camera could be maybe a little bit better when it comes to focus, but otherwise I definitely don't see why you shouldn't buy the Huawei phone, except for maybe it's too big for you. But otherwise, thanks much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe. My name is Balazs. Till next time, don't forget to subscribe. As I said already before, thank you much for watching. Until next time, bye.